Well, that's the best you're getting out of the microphone. I can't have it any closer to my face. Welcome to Game of Nodes, a weekly podcast on the cosmos from independent validator teams.
Hello and welcome to Game of Nodes, a weekly podcast on the cosmos from independent validator teams. Null is once again on walkabout, so sorry about the bird noise in the background. He's in a bit of land known as Belongamick, and and he's unapologetic about not putting the microphone close to his face, and that's about as much news as we've got to open the show with.
Exactly as you hit the go button, my mouse shit itself. Now I can't do anything. I can't even mute the friggin' the microphone for the birds.
You just got to hold it straight to your fucking face then for the rest
and
of the...
talk constantly so no one can hear the background noise.
What birds do you have where you are right now, Noel?
Ones with wings and beaks and bullets in them if I ever get a hold of them.
Sensational. Okay, are you allowed to just hunt birds in Australia? What are the hunting regulations like?
I don't think you're supposed to just shoot birds, if I'm being honest.
Hold it at your face. Can't hear you.
I don't think you're supposed to just shoot the birds.
I mean, literally, the sound quality is so much better when you do that. I don't know why. You just need to sort this out. It's especially so for those listening. Noel was complaining about sounding tinny in the group chat earlier, and we were like, you need to have the mic closer to your face. That's the solution.
I didn't know that, in fairness.
The solution that we've chosen to go with is Jake's solution of just holding your microphone.
Shocking.
Kind of just do like a Talking Heads type thing. It is Talking Heads I'm thinking of, right? Maybe. Anyway, so I've missed this. Somebody say tinnies. Thanks, Rama. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I could go for a beer right now. I've been doing actual work for 12 hours, and it's tiring. How do people work with their hands all day? Anyway, so I haven't seen any Cosmos news for the last 24 hours. What's happened?
I don't think I've seen any Cosmos news in that last 24 hours.
It's we had like 4 gov props, I think, in a week since the last episode, didn't we? Or something on Juno, and we had like 2 on Stargaze. I think there's a bunch of new contracts getting deployed. I'm trying to think other networks. The problem is we only at the moment validate 3 networks, so I'm kind of relying on you guys to tell me.
There's a lot on Juno to talk about with the sub-DAOs, and also the new CORE-1 sub-DAO proposal that's incoming with the-frey as a named CORE-1 member.
Oh, is that actually live now?
No, it's in Commonwealth.
Oh, okay. All right. Not hugely surprising. The timing is a little surprising. Okay. I should probably know that, but
you should.
And Max Juno. Oh, I think it's up on Commonwealth anyway. I'm sure the link that I clicked on was on Commonwealth. If not, oops.
So, and sorry, I've just been distracted by the fact there's Big Bird chat in the stream chat, and Noel's just fucked off. I was going to ask him a question about very large Australian birds. Have you ever seen a cassowary? Like that was my, like, Noel, have you ever seen a cassowary? Like you should know it's an Australian thing, but they're like actual fucking dinosaurs. They're crazy.
Don't they have like a big thing on their nose, like a huge, like a?
Yeah, they have the dinosaur like
right?
Fin thing.
Yeah,
and I don't know if it's the only time somebody's been killed by one in the last while, but I'm pretty sure a Florida man was killed by one the other year.
No shit.
Yeah, that's no surprise there.
It's like a meme, isn't it? The Florida man thing. It's like Florida man killed by cassowary, even though it's a thing from Australia.
Yeah, I mean, if you've been to Florida, then it becomes less of a joke because Florida's just insane.
Why is Florida so insane? I mean, it's just kind of like hot and humid, right? What?
It's in the tropics, man. You get tropical animals.
Well, I mean, if you want an actual answer, I can break down more an actual answer. But I would say a big problem is like there's a very large immigrant community there, as well as that's where a lot of the snowbirds go. So you mix those two things together, and it just ends up in this really strange microcosm of somehow like an absolute insane amount of culture and the worst suburbs in the world hitting at the same time. It's just bizarre.
So snowbirds, is that retired people? I'm taking a punt.
Not necessarily retired people that are like that when the snow comes in the northern bit, they move down to their home down in Florida to stay warm. Same thing with like Arizona. They basically migrate themselves, 4, 5, 6 states south down to Florida or Arizona. Not so much Texas. I don't know if I've heard of snowbirds going to Texas.
But if you have to work, how do you do that? I mean, like pre-COVID, I guess.
Fair. Yeah, so I guess it would imply retired folks.
Okay, well, we're laughing and learning, or except there weren't too many laughs in that Florida bit after the dead guy bit, which was, I guess, dark in hindsight. Anyway, so yeah, cassowaries, that's the thing. Subdals, that's another thing, I guess.
Yeah, I do see that. I'll put the link in the show notes, but I see that Commonwealth to be able to convert Core-1 to an official subDAO, and I see 2 additional members, the-frey and Max Juno, getting pulled in.
Yeah,
you got the nod.
I guess people are finally fucking tired of me having opinions on Git commits, so I have to stop doing day-to-day complaining about Go code. I guess.
What can we do to shut this guy up?
What can we do to shut this guy up?
Promote him.
Let's just, I guess, make him a middle manager.
Strategy is old as time.
If there's an example of the Peter principle that's more pertinent, I don't really know of one. But yeah, so that's a thing. We'll see how that thrashes out.
What do they call it, the mafia? They opened up the books. Your name is in there. Is that what they call it?
Yeah, maybe. Is that a guy wringing the neck of an emu?
It is. Kingnodes on mute without a mouse.
He's just talking away. He can't unmute himself.
So Pup Moss was mentioning the emu war, and this is like, some graphic that someone's made regarding the emu war, I guess. I mean, that guy's just trying to pat that emu. They're notoriously dangerous, so you don't want to let him, just peck at your face while you're trying to pat them.
Oh, he's patting it? He's not wringing its neck?
No, that's a loving caress.
This bit is going to be very strange for people listening on podcast players. I can't really verbally describe what we're looking at, but it's a kind of mock Remember the Fallen picture for the Emu War, which has a guy on the background of the Australian flag.
Yeah, why is a flag in there?
Who looks like he's sort of wringing the neck of an emu, like in battle, but actually Null is saying that he's just respectfully patting the emu, and it just looks a bit weird. So yeah, you can look that up for yourself. And yeah, okay, that's just an emu with what looks like a small artillery piece stuck to its back. So,
and laser eyes.
I think that might be photoshopped, actually. I'm not going to lie, lads.
None of these are photoshopped. These are all 1-to-1.
Definitely not
Definitely
Photoshop.
Yeah, that one. For sure. For sure.
But most of the chat says, yes, the Great War.
Yeah.
Describe that one.
So
Not Photoshop.
the picture that we need to actually move on to some content in a second, but I will indulge you before we move on. The picture that we have been shown is that it's a famous war correspondent photo from Vietnam, I believe, of a village was bombed with napalm, and the photographer took a photo of children running away from it, and they were mainly naked, I guess, because they were taken off their clothes because I guess napalm was stuck to it. And there are also somebody has photoshopped, very sensitively photoshopped, emus running away from the village into that very famous photograph. So that.
Enough of that.
Welcome to Game of Node. Guys,
put up,
welcome to Game of Nodes.
It's like the worst Google image search ever. Just Null throws up a random image and you make the Fray talk about it and describe it to others. It's just an awful AI.
We did have
emu and a.
We did have a thing at company where I used to work at where you had to try it. It was kind of like Pictionary. You had to describe a meme in words at the end of stand-up.
Yeah.
It was really hard, like surprisingly hard. Because unless they were like really good, like the butterfly meme, that wasn't around at the time. But if it was, that would have been really good because you're just like, it's like, very easy to describe the kind of setup for. I'm not. I don't even know what I'm looking at now. I'm not going to describe
that one. Can ChatGPT take images yet and describe them? That's going to be next, right? Have you guys been messing around with that at all?
Yeah, man.
I haven't, but a friend tried. It was something like, "Can you tell me a story about Harry Styles while insinuating that he was involved in 9/11?" And that was basically he tried a lot of different things, and the only point where the GPT said, "Nah, I'm out. I can't do it anymore."
Done.
Was that one? It was like, tell me a poem about Harry Styles while insinuating that he was involved in 9/11, and it was like, I'm sorry, I can't fulfill that request. But until then, it was very impressive.
It is pretty phenomenal.
It's amazing. Yeah.
You just type in, and it never says, well, to me anyway, it's never said like, sorry, can't do that. It just comes up with something that makes entirely lots of sense. I asked it some random stuff about like contracts and construction and just various things to do with like civil engineering. And it was like pretty good.
Yeah. Are you saying that you're just going to hook it up to your like work DMs and just see if it can take over your job for you?
Honestly, there's no joke around that. Today we were messing around. We were doing we were asking for 500 word blog posts on specific topics, and it was writing blog posts that we could easily just publish on like a wide range of different topics, like benefits of this in specific industries and this and that, and like there was. We were talking about just like, could I make it where I could just give it ideas and pipeline it directly into Twitter? Because there's a ton, like some of the outcome that we saw it was like not too technical in nature, but it was pretty damn impressive actually.
So when does someone make like a chat GPT bot that just talks for you on Twitter?
Probably already have.
Yeah, honestly, you could wire that up. I would
just
think.
replies to. I wonder if chat can talk in Pupmos speak.
I don't know. We should ask Pupmos. Pupmos actually in the chat has said that asking the Pupbot to write a poem about Harry Styles while insinuating that he was involved in 9/11 has actually killed the Pupbot, and that we have blood on our hands. So, that's that's where we're at. It's 13 minutes into the show. We've killed the Pupbot. 9/11 it wasn't an inside job, unless Harry Styles is also a member of the US government, or was he a member of the US government in 2001? He would have been about 5 years old, wouldn't he? So probably not.
So Pupmos says, wait, have you not talked to my bot? I thought he was a bot.
What? Oh, there's a Pupbot in Telegram.
Oh, right. So not Pupmos himself.
Yeah, it's a GPT Pupbot.
Huh.
Have you not? Well, like Jake was posting thingies on Twitter the other day that he had asked Pupbot screenshots.
Pupbot.
Anyway,
Pupbot says my bill is $3,000 a month.
Make a blog post for me.
Yeah, that sounds like something. Anyway, so there's a couple of I can't talk. Oh yeah. There's. I was going to say there's some. There's some. I was about to say. Oh, there's some exciting new chains and things happening, and then I remember that none of them are announced yet. We're not supposed to talk about them. So
great. Nice.
I was like, but okay, but it's what I have noticed is there seems to be more Cosmos projects kind of coming out of the woodwork with real use cases and whatnot, sort of in the last few days, in the last couple of weeks, like really conveniently when I had zero time, people being like, "Hey, can you provision a box because the testnet's about to start?" And you're like, "I can barely put my socks on at the moment, lads, but yes, 100%, let's go." But yeah, it's kind of it's going to be interesting. Like I still wonder. The conversation we were having the other week about tokenomics in a bear market, and how projects launching might have to do things like pretty differently. I do wonder quite a bit about that because we're still, I don't know what, maybe facing a year more of this stuff, and it's whether or not people actually actively start turning off validators, like we were kind of again talking about last week or the week before. New chains have got to first acquire the validators, like quality validators, and then retain them, right? Which involves making money. So yeah, but then thinking about it, almost all the new chains that I've heard of going for more of a Kajira model, which is interesting.
You mean like no inflation?
Yeah, either no inflation and a fixed supply, or some kind of mechanism where increase in supply is not the primary way that validators and stakers would earn income, and in some cases even trying to actually make fees like a meaningful part of the revenue model, which is not really a thing in Cosmos,
So do you think that's because Null just bashes pumponomics on Game of Nodes? Do you think we have that much influence that people are starting to change their ways?
Yes.
100%.
I don't feel I need to elaborate any further. It's just a straight yes.
Straight yes.
Everybody's designed their tokenomics, and they've got the final draft ready to go. They watch one of these episodes and they're just like, hold on.
Can't disappoint Null. We better delete all that.
We better start over, fellas. We better start over. Yeah. So
the other commonwealth things on Juno then are, I'm not even sure which ones are live and which ones aren't, because it's all been so much back and forth flying around between bits and pieces. So I don't know if this is alpha, but I'm pretty sure it's on Commonwealth as well. So there's the Constitution for Juno, which they're trying to make good. Hey,
that is on Commonwealth, yeah.
On Commonwealth,
yeah.
And then there was no other sub-DAOs though on actually live at the moment, was there?
Core-1.
So there's the make open source great again proposal.
Yeah. The unenforceable open source proposal round 2.
Yeah, yes. The fixed up one, the more inclusive of information one, I guess you would say, from 59. So the Juno the Loop Finance grant passed its signaling proposal.
Did it?
Yeah. I mean, look, it was a piss poor effort by everyone who voted on this, because the abstains were 55.8%, which is just a lot.
I think we might have abstained, to be fair.
Look.
But then I think
looking through this list, Kingnodes also abstained. So
hey,
I'm kicking myself for that.
So I think the thing with this one was that I as a representative from Needlecast, was on, it doesn't exist anymore, the Terra Development Fund, and the Terra Development Fund collectively decided to put that back to the community before it was funded. So in essence, I and we as an organization have already voted, which is to put it to the community. And so we voted abstain because it was it's up to our delegators on that one to make their voice heard, because the whole point, I think, of putting that to the community was that, sure, validators should have their say, and the community should have their say, but core team members that have already had some input, either talking to the TDF people and raising concerns, or talking to TDF people and supporting them, or any of those other things, I think those arguments have already been played out. So it kind of felt important to just abstain rather than taking a default position for delegators. Whether or not that many of our delegators actually did vote, I don't know. I hope they did, because it's quite an important one. And I think there is well, I guess it's interesting. Like, we're all businesses, right? We all run businesses, and I think that there's two different perspectives on the loop thing, right? One of them, me as an individual, taking off responsibility hat, I would be worried about funding an organization that hasn't monetized, that doesn't have a route to monetization, and have a very small runway before they run out of cash. I would worry that giving them 100K, or I think is it 150K or something like that? I don't know. It's quite a chunk of change. Giving them a chunk of money before they slam into a brick wall is kind of pointless. You may as well just back pocket the cash and use it for something else, rather than giving it to just putting it in a car that's about to smash into a wall and then catch fire. Like, the money's gone. But then, with my professional hat on, a contract's a contract, and there's an implied contract there. It sets a very bad precedent, I think, to say you're going to fund a team and then not fund them if they have met their milestone.
To that
point,
like 100% on the same page as you. Sorry, I'll continue my thought, usurper, after you say what you're thinking, mate.
To that point, why did the TDF push this out to a gov vote? Why? It's already 5/6 is already gone. Like, who cares? Like, you already have 90% of it deployed. Now you're going to go to the community and say, hey, do they deserve the rest? Like, what is that? If the TDF agreed on the last 5 out of 6 payments, why are they pushing this last one to this?
I think because there was increasing dissent over time on
that's not the way these things work.
Was delivered.
That's not the way these things work. Like, you can't build a fund and then put a group in place, and then when times get tough and they can't agree, you punt. Like, either you're a fund, you're gonna then like, you can make that case on every single thing. Like, well, we're not really sure, but we're gonna make the decision on $1.2 million, but this last 200K we can't agree on, so we're gonna punt it. Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, I for what it's worth, I was just kind of like, either pay them or don't pay them, but just do it with the sub DAO, and then kind of move on, like, learn from the thing. But if I've learned one thing from the last year, and especially from like Prop 16 and stuff, when the community are increasingly angry about a thing, sometimes it is better to just ask them. But then, there is the classic thing. I can't remember who said it, but there's like this classic thing in sort of British governance, which is obviously totally ironic given the last few years that we are a clown car of a country in terms of governance at the moment. But there is an established supposed thing with MPs, which is that you should be in a position, like, leadership as being in the position of voting against the people that elected you for the good of the people that elected you, right? So there is an argument that basically TDF took a step back from that, I think.
Yeah. Well,
which I think is what you're saying, right?
Then they should be voted on. This prop should be about that TDF fund, and say, should this be the leadership that continues forward? Because if they can't accurately, like, because I even asked, we voted no on this, which for my reasons were different. My reasons were more around the idea that final payment should be tied to final deliverables. That's the way we've always been gone. And they came back, like, Loop people responded and said, that's not really what our original agreement was. I'm like, well, what's the original agreement? And they linked to the TDF, but the TDF is not an agreement of any sort. And they have a proposal in there, but it doesn't have any deliverables, doesn't have any dollar amounts. It doesn't even have, like, there's not much in there. And so they said, well, it doesn't match the original agreement. I said, well, show me the original agreement. Because if this is in line with the agreement, then great, you should be paid. And if there is no agreement, what the hell are we doing? Like, why are we giving away, like, why is this group giving away $1.6 million without clear deliverables? without clear timelines, without clear metrics on what the bars are to be able to receive it. Like, that's unbelievable.
So I think that if you take into context the time and the environment at which the agreements were made, TDF was formed on short notice. A lot of us didn't even know, even people involved with Juno, like pretty intimately, didn't even know about TDF. It was happening in the background until it was like, public.
Yeah.
And I believe that the purpose behind it was to try and get Terra developers onto Juno, right? At any cost. And I think, the problem was twofold. One, on our side, there wasn't a lot of due diligence and structuring of payments, right? So because everything happened pretty quick, they're just like, there's the proposal. And they're like, yeah, okay, let's do it. And on the Terra side, I think that any project was just trying to get funded by anyone to continue their payroll, right? And without due regard for like the communities that they were taking that money from. Without making any real commitments, it was just basically to shore up their payroll for the immediate future so they could try and find a way forward. And look, if a project wasn't successfully able to sustain itself on Terra, there's no fucking way that same model is going to successfully sustain itself on Juno with the amount of users and the way that Juno works with fees and
different economic system. Yeah.
So unless they plan to fund them indefinitely until they figured out how to actually make money. I mean, a lot of projects are coming in to crypto running the same sort of model as what you do with your free and then freemium and then subscription model type stuff in real tech, right? And it just doesn't fucking work here because the people who are funding it are they're already funding, the users are funding these people. It's not, the money doesn't come from Juno, the network. The money comes from Juno's users out of the liquidity pools.
Absolutely.
And this $1.2 million that they're given to Loop for absolutely, in my view, not much return in terms of product, it's just come straight out of the pockets of regular users. And I don't think that's good. And I think that, that should be the option of if the community want to renege on a promise that was made by a sub-DAO, well, sub-DAOs are governed by the community DAO, right? So if they want to pull the pin on something, it's up to them to have the opportunity to do that. But at the same time, it's not a good look for the network as a community to make an agreement and then break it. It's a culmination of a bunch of different issues.
I agree with you there. Like if they are going to break a commitment, this to me is like that TDF team just punting it to the community to make the community the bad guy, right? Which didn't work in this situation because they passed it. But then, like, we're not strong enough to actually break that commitment. We're not going to have that press around it. We're going to see if the community wants to do it.
But at the same time, like as I say, every sub-DAO is. And yeah, the TDF was formed before the sub-DAO prop, but every sub-DAO is, beholden to the community DAO. And so if the community DAO want to change something or their voice should be heard, in this example, there was a lot of noise being made about that particular funding agreement. So, I mean, if the people want to be heard, they should be heard, in my opinion.
Yeah, they should do that.
And the community DAO, i.e. governance, outweighs any sub-DAO because that's how the sub-DAOs were put forward as entities that are governed by the community DAO. So ultimately, the decision sits with the community DAO if they want to override anything. Or get rid of users or whatever. So, I mean, is it an ideal situation? No. But is it like the situation that we have? Yes. Do I think personally that they should have got their funding? Probably not. But in terms of not reneging on a deal, I think we should just close out the deal. It's right at the end. They'll deliver whatever they want. God knows if they're even going to stay on Juno.
Right.
But I think going forward, we need to make way better decisions on what we fund and how we fund it. And as you say, Usurper, I completely agree that we should be based on, outcomes rather than promises, and pay on outcome, not promises.
Yeah, and I also want to recognize the rush that happened when Terra collapsed and basically pulling a group together to be able to identify funding to go try to entice projects come in. I'm totally for that. Like, I understand that pressure and that timing. It was also, 7 months ago. So there were 7 months of time to be able to put structure around this as a TDF, right? And then every time that they're throwing Juno out the door in one of these 6 payments or in these 6 types of things, somebody somewhere should be like, so what happens at the end of this? And what does this look like? And are we on track? And like that is the role of that TDF fund and that DAO. Like, they should be measured. And so I just think, like, I agree with the idea that the community fund drives it and blah, 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 and all that kind of idea. Like, it's very pie in the sky type structure around it. Like, you can't govern things like this in a community fashion. Like, at some point, somebody's got to look at the deliverables. Somebody's got to look at the outcome. Somebody has to be able to settle up that agreement to say that they met that or not. And if that team isn't there, then they should have a more structured kind of, fund DAO that has some better guardrails and people have experience in doing that. Because this seems like a railroad. Like, they just kind of threw it in there, and there's a bunch of dollars in Juno that's going out there. You're right; it's coming out of the pockets of the community. Like, it's a large chunk of money over a pretty short period of time, and to not have anything tied to the end and just kind of like hoping. And there's nothing stopping them from building it here and bring it to another chain or starting their own. Right? There's nothing here that ties that to Juno, correct?
Yeah, there's
nothing, right?
There's no like service agreement that says, if we fund you, you have to operate on us for the next 10 years. Like,
right.
We own your IP. There's nothing like that.
Right.
But I mean, I think a fundamental problem, Usurper, is that I don't think people fully understand that the community pool is not $200 million. The community pool is not $100 million. The community pool is nothing. It's nothing. It's tokens that aren't in circulation.
Right.
And as soon as you bring them into circulation, they become a liability against the liquidity pools. And, I don't think people get it. I think they see the number on the screen, and the number is big, and they think that there's plenty of money to throw around.
Like, it's cash in the bank or something, right? Like, they think it's a bank balance. It is not a bank balance.
No, it absolutely isn't. And unless you can swap it OTC, you're going to destroy the price when you get rid of any of that. So if you go and look at the liquidity pools, I don't know what's in the liquidity pools for Juno at the moment, but I'm tipping it's probably about $5 million or something like that. Maybe that's generous. So, I mean, that's all that's available. And so there's not $200 million. There's maximum $5 million if you drained every bit of liquidity out of that pool. And there's no other way to swap it out. So when you give them 100,000 Juno, that's what, $200,000? That's, what's that, 5% of the pool?
Yeah, it's a pretty big big chunk of it.
It's a chunk.
Yeah, so that's going to be damaging to the price if they go and dump that. And look, the way, I imagine they're not happy right now, and I imagine they might not fucking give a shit, and they might just do that. So, it's not $200 million. It's not $100 million. It's whatever's in the liquidity pool, and it comes directly out of the pocket of users. And so I think, we need to be clearer about that. And especially when funding things, especially if it's a stupid number, like $1 million to fund someone at the moment is basically half of the available liquidity. Well, maybe a third. I think the liquidity is 2.6 million.
Looks like the price impact on Osmosis would be around 10% if they just sold it at market.
Which is massive.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know how we do it, but users need to be better informed about what drawing on the community pool actually does, and how it affects them, and that it's not just an unlimited pool of money, because it's not.
Well, there's also like long-term stuff, isn't there, about like how a completely structureless DAO essentially can better hedge against market conditions, because you know, all of like back to the validator dumping that we love to talk about at various times. But like the reason that you hedge in fiat is as a business because it is less less volatile on the whole, right? So you're trying to even out the market, and you don't have, you know, if you're a cash right now, you probably cashed out a bunch of dollars at the top of the bull to see through this bear. And, you know, a cash can be throwing around money to fund projects that don't deliver shit. Are they fuck? Absolutely not. But they will have that money there, and they'll have it in US dollars, you know? And Juno doesn't really have that luxury. So the question is like, what as well, you know, obviously USDC wasn't an option. Were there any other? I mean, and USDC is dubiously stable, dubiously backed anyway. You know, do you want to get rugged by the next sort of UST collapse as a core DAO, which is the danger as soon as you transfer out of your native token? I don't know. But there's also some questions there on like how you diversify your risk when you can only really use cryptographic assets. There's a whole quite interesting debate to be had there, I think. As well as sorry.
We need a US dollar backed.
Oh, he's frozen.
Yep, he did it.
Jeez.
Did a cassowary come up behind him?
just pegged him in the back of the head.
Just pure Jurassic Park vibes. Got him.
Yeah, I mean, we need assets in the cosmos that aren't, you know, pipe dreams. We need US dollar backed stuff.
Honestly,
Nah.
Spicy fucking opinion. I want a fully collateralized central bank digital currency in Cosmos. That is my fucking spice. That is my spice. That's my spice. If the Bank of England was like, yeah, all right, you can cash in pound sterling if you hold them for 1-to-1 pound sterling on a Cosmos blockchain. The validators are all run by fucking G Cloud providers. It's the same as the Gov Cloud in the States. Basically, there's a list of providers that can provide services. Those teams can provide validators. I'd be like, do you know what? It's just a decentralized system to put pounds digital. I would use that. I would happily IBC Juno into fucking Bitcoin. And then
I don't know if I want any Bitcoin, but you know,
I mean, it's not get the price. The price is also going to be pretty volatile, isn't it, lads?
I'd take yens over fucking Bitcoin.
but no, because I think like the great irony, I think, of the current Tendermint proof of stake mechanism is actually it is quite well suited to running a central bank digital currency in an adversarial environment where validators might be taken down by hostile action.
Mm-hmm.
Like actually about 150 nodes ish run by teams that are being paid to do so on a contract is actually like it's a pretty fucking resilient distributed system. Like, so I don't know if we're doing phrase hot take corner. I think it would be really good if I was the president of the Cosmos, which of course is Jesus Stein Quan. I would be trying to get central banks to join the Cosmos. That's what I'd be doing. That's the hot take of the week. Sorry, I wanted to pick up one of you said something really interesting, and I've already forgotten. We moved on past it before I could jump in and be like, "Oh, can we talk about that?" And
I don't think it's one of us.
I think it was something you said, sir. But we've had a few comments as well, so I'm just going to quickly roll back and cover off some things we've had come up in the chat. There's been a lot of chat. So Popmos says I think this was a reply to you, Serpa, on the details of the original loop funding. It's on the DAO prop potentially, not the IPFS bit. Mm-hmm. Also, Putmos did get a reply from the GPT-3 bot, which says, so he said, GPT-3 just replied about Harry Styles, saying, Putmos is a good boy. He always tried to do the right thing, even when it comes to Harry Styles. He knows that Harry is innocent and wasn't involved in 9/11. He is just a victim of the media's lies. So there you go. That's the AI bot.
Go.
That's the AI bot addressing insinuations that Harry Styles was involved in 9/11. Oh, sorry, he's just a victim of the media's lies and propaganda was the final bit of that. So, and then Niels had asked, what do you think about the Healthy MEV proposal draft? I've not seen that, but I guess that's related to, is that related to Skip or is that related to some other MEV mechanism?
Yeah, what chain? Is that Juno?
Niels, if there's a Commonwealth link, let us know. We'll go find it and put it in the show notes. We'll put it in the chat. We can discuss this 100%. And then Rama and Putmos were arguing about whether or not Loop would fail in the chat. Partial Match asked, Don Kryptonian said funding Loop was a bad idea at the time it was funded. Many people piled on him over that, but was he right all along? It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think from kind of behind the scenes, like the perspective of sort of being on TDF, we were there kind of mainly as a technical, I guess, due diligence, so not really a business side so much. But
now what the hell's going on?
When does the fray ever cut out?
Never.
Sorry to interrupt the fray, but if you have a contrarian view on everything, you're going to be right eventually, right?
Maybe he got hit in the back of the head with a what was that called? A
Cassowary?
Yeah, that could have happened.
Maybe he's just finally gotten sunstroke from the fucking
from that bright light in his head.
In his face.
Oh my goodness.
So anyway, Putmos is also on here saying, that the cell pressure is coming from somewhere, and obviously I haven't investigated, and I wish they would just say what it was. Now I'm having to try and look for this unbonding transaction from days ago. I think they're referring to the one that came off Putmos's validator, and try and figure out who that was, because apparently it's related. So if you can just give me a link, to the evidence that I can just look at it and then say it instead of having to make clicks, that'd be great, Rama. Have I also frozen? No. Everyone else's faces were really still for a second there.
I was actually taking a look just real quick around. Niels was talking about, or somebody mentioned the Healthy MEV proposal that is in Juno, that is from DME, posted it forward. So that basically, I think what's been happening here is that here comes the fray, made it back.
Football.
So after Skip went live on Juno, maybe about a month ago, plus or minus, something like that. There's been a wide variety of you can basically set a commission, the structure to the MEV transaction. So the MEV volume is really low, but there is and the transactions are not very large, but there's some, and those turn into some that commission that comes back through a searcher that is basically building a bundle that gets included in a block that comes back to the Val. And then the Skip team made it where you can kind of split between where that commission goes. It could go to a wallet that the validator defines, or the rest goes to the mint, which basically just goes out not to like your delegators as a validator, just goes to the general mint. It just basically goes to anybody who's staked, which is probably the only way you can maybe do that, because I don't know how you would write that to go identify all the delegators for one specific val and all that kind of stuff. So there's a wide variety of 100% to the mint to 0%. We do it the opposite way. Right now the values are so low that we take 100% of it, which is, I think, equating to I don't know. Actually, I'll go back and look and see what it is recently. It's probably less than 0.8 Juno a day, something like that. Maybe 0.5, something like that. I don't know. Maybe Schulte knows better some numbers on it. So I think DME in this proposal, I'll put a link in there as well. It's up in Commonwealth right now, but they want to basically put some guidelines around what the validator max and min commissions are, similar to what we do from a regular validator commission as a minimum of 5%. Here, DME's promoting that a minimum of 10% of MEV rewards go to the Val, and a maximum of 75% go to the Val. Something similar to that, to be able to kind of build some rule sets around that. So I think this is a community-based type of structure. we assumed when this came forward that there would have to be some sort of community kind of like guideline and some validator guidelines around what this is. I predicted that it would be a race to zero, and it instantly was, which really benefits nobody, honestly. It doesn't really benefit the community in any sort of way. I mean, the numbers, at least right now, are so small, and divided by the total amount of stake, nothing's coming into your wallet from it. Like, if it is, it's 9 zeros in front of that number. And so could there be something more important that we can do with that? And could there be more revenue that's coming through in some sort of way that goes to something else? So we assume that this would be coming. I'm glad it's here. I think we'll put some comments on it. I don't know if these are the right numbers, if it makes sense, or, what do you guys think about in terms of if should there be commission structures on this? Should it be open? Is this the same thing as like regular validator commissions, where there's a race to zero type of thing, or not?
I mean, I tend to take the same perspective on commissions one way or another, which is there should be a minimum, and that minimum, in my opinion, shouldn't be zero.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're setting a minimum and a maximum, I think, is pretty cool. I think I'll chime in on that Commonwealth thread just to participate. I mean, the thing is, it's like, it's not like running the additional software is no effort, right? If you're doing some level of due diligence where you're at least, going and seeing what has changed, then that does require some effort to change out the binary. It's not a lot, granted, but it's still something. And in running it now, you kind of have to, like, it requires effort one way or another to do it. So I think that 0% can be made an argument for, just because then you're sending all the commission. Oh, I'm a great validator. It's a marketing ploy. But really, and especially in the current economic conditions where validators are often not making enough and are starting to depart networks, I think it makes sense to take some more profit.
Yeah. And Todd Blockpain just commented like he's considering 0% just to make taxes easier, which is totally true too, because actually I was just talking to them about that too, because it's a straight income type of structure, and it's just a different transaction type that needs to be handled differently, versus other transactions that are coming through the wallet, and taxes are a fucking nightmare enough as they are. So sometimes for small numbers, it's not even worth it. Like it's better just to ignore them and just let them go back to the community.
Yeah. Well, there's
sorry, we're talking about the MEV, right?
Yeah.
So I changed the wallet on mine. We do 50-50 because otherwise, like, what's even the point of doing it? And in a week, we've made 1 cent. So
congrats.
Yay.
Yeah, I know we got attacked pretty hard on Twitter about being 100%. I was like, go look at the numbers. Like, we're talking about. I mean, if it grows, it grows. Like I'm hoping it does, and I'm hoping. I don't know. There has to be.
It's not going to grow on Juno because no one uses the DEX, and until there's a DEX that people use and it's integrated with that, man, it's fucking useless anyway. Maybe there would be a better return on EVMOS potentially. There's a lot more swap action on EVMOS, and I'm not sure which DEX it actually arbs against, or if it arbs against multiple. But I mean, your best place for MEV, community MEV rather than ArbBot is going to be Osmo, of course.
Yeah.
So they haven't really implemented it there, and I think that the Osmosis network are implementing their own MEV solution to return to the community, probably in the form of rewards. But I mean, I wonder if they do that, if the network's going to take their piece off the top like they do with the minting.
I think Skip Team is working with the Osmosis team. I believe that they're building it in, and I believe it's automatically 100% going back to the mint. So I think all MEV rewards, there is no validator structure for it. We're not using the Skip dashboard. It's not setting a wallet. It's not setting percentages. I think 100% goes back to the mint. Sonny just commented on this on Twitter. I'll put a link in there too about that, where it should be protocol based. And so it just goes back to the mint. So I think, it's fine. Right. I mean, so it really is nothing to the validator structure, although there would have to be some configuration in there, I would think, because maybe not. Maybe if all validators are forced to run it, then you don't have to deal with. I'm not sure how the configuration works in terms of subscribing to a channel for packets and all that kind of stuff. But yeah,
I'm just bringing up a comment from Neil saying it's obviously not important at the moment, but if we're discussing the MEV topic, shouldn't we think about a future with more action on the chain and what would be fair in that case? And also, just because obviously taxes came up a couple of times there, and I love talking about taxes, naturally, I'm a validator.
Awesome.
There's a really interesting thing here, which was a while ago, there was a kind of big effort to get validators to accept Atom, right, on Juno, which, I mean, I'm obviously kind of against because I think it's kind of dumb to accept coins that aren't your native token personally, but whatever, YOLO. I can also see the other side, have IBC denoms of maybe a couple of closely related sister chains, if you like, and then have them accepted. Do you see that? But what then happens, obviously, the proposer, if they accept that as a fee, then you can end up as a validator with like 1/10,000th of a Juno, of an Atom, sorry, that you then have to account for in your taxes and then track. And you're just like, oh, I can't believe I've just been done dirty like this. This is insane. And
Done dirty.
yeah, and the discussion at the moment is that obviously min fee is coming in 47, and there is a lot of discussion for running with multiple additional tokens from like, I guess, related sister chains, say Stargaze Osmosis if you're Juno, or those kind of things. Maybe the same sort of change. You might want to deploy mesh security, you might also want to take their tokens, but you're just going to end up with like random small, potentially very small amounts, because for the majority of, let's say, the Gen 1 Cosmos chains, which are currently the blue chips, I hate blue chip as a term, but whatever, it is true. They predominantly make income for their validators and stakers via inflation, right? Not via fees. So all the fees do is complicate your tax situation, and we're about to potentially non-linearly increase our bookkeeping hassle for no additional money. Like if you're making 100 Atom a year or something, definitely at current prices, and it would be probably a lot less in fees as a validator, but you're having to actually do the bookkeeping on those Atom, you're going to spend more on bookkeeping than you actually make. So there is this interesting thing of like, there's a tension, I think, sometimes with some of this stuff, like with what's good for users and what's good for validators, and especially when we kind of look at where we are now on usage, to bring it back to Niels's point, that a lot of these things make a lot more sense when you have a lot of prospective usage in the future, which at the moment we're not at a point where these are meaningful income streams. I don't know if that's even a hot take or not, but that's it. Just seems that even in the MEV case, right, it's not at the moment a meaningful income stream, right?
No, I mean, I agree. I was one of the first people on Secret Network or first validators in Secret to add in additional fees for different tokens, and suddenly I had like 6 different tokens, and I was like, okay, so I did this kind of to say that I could do it, but then it occurred to me basically exactly what you're talking about, where now and delegators get them too, right? Fees also go to delegators. Now all the delegators also then have all these additional, just like 0.0001 Atom. I actually just checked my wallet, and that's exactly how much Atom I have in that wallet that I got from fees. So I'm like, great. Literally adding that line is more than that was worth. That's a micro penny, or even less. And me taking the time to do that is way more than that. But anyway, I want to address Neil's comments as well about like the more activity and how MEV works with that. My understanding is that with the way that Skip works specifically is that they will never take up an entire block. So there isn't too much of a concern around MEV like kicking out full blocks. It'll be like they have a certain section that they can use within a block, and then once that's full, then that's it. And so there's still all this extra area where you can't just buy into using.
Yeah, that is my that is my understanding too, and we really should understand it perfectly. But given that we did have the lads on the podcast, what feels like about 1,000 years ago, but I have the really nasty suspicion was like 6 weeks or something.
It was like middle of October or something.
Yeah, like
maybe September. I don't know.
I feel like I've aged years in the last 4 weeks.
That's funny because every Wednesday I get up and I'm thinking about like what's on this, what we're going to talk about and all that kind of stuff. And I think remember getting out of bed and be like, wow, this is a really tough week. And then I recognize that I've had that same thought like the last 9 weeks in a row where I wake up I'm like, we just can't talk about this, how fucking hard it is, like, or how busy or miserable or this or that and everything else. So it's just funny.
Yeah, it's not.
So should
we've also I should also just say that in the chat. We've had a little bit of an Agatha Christie moment. I wish I had a pun to use for some combination of Rama and Putmos, talking about who's doing the selling, the sell pressure. And they both realized that they were talking about the same entity. So that's all fun and games. If you're listening on a podcast player, you have to come back to the YouTube chat to see that one. Very, very exciting to watch that one evolve in real time. And so actually on the unbonding thing, so there's been some talk in the chat, just for context for those listening later. There's been some discussion on unbonding as well. And one of the big, I guess, concern points for a lot of Cosmos networks at the moment is looking at the amount of tokens being unbonded. And for a lot of the blue chip, I'm going to have to say it again because I don't have another.
You love that term.
I fucking hate that term. But what about? I guess what I'm trying to say is like, as validators, we have networks that should definitely return at least a break even. And they sometimes subsidize the networks that don't, right? Then that's how you ride out the market conditions. Is you have some that are more likely to be more stable or their floor is higher in terms of price. And the difficulty now is that like actually a lot of Cosmos networks are now slipping below a profitable price floor.
Sure.
But the interesting thing on those networks is obviously looking at unbonding, and the rate of unbonding at the moment in some cases is actually pretty severe in terms of looking at what prospective price pressure might do in 28 days, let's say. It's a bit of a worry.
You're talking validators, or you're just talking just wallets in general?
I'm not saying that validators are unbonding, but I am saying that
whale.
Well, I mean, I don't know about you guys in terms of your validators, but I've noticed we've been losing delegations in chunks, and some of it is larger delegators, literally just taking a K and just going, I guess, just taking profit while they can, or something.
Right.
But
I mean that's a confidence on whether it's coming back or whether it's not coming back, right? So I think there's a bunch of unbonding, just people just want to have the flexibility either sell at some sort of point or maybe put it to a different ecosystem or switch chains or something else, right? Like they're not going to ride it to zero.
Yeah. Rama says there are a lot of whale moves at the moment. Defer to Rama's superior chain analysis on that one. But
tax time is not January, but being able to, if you're going to take losses, you got to take it in a year, right? So that would be December. So it's actually, well, depends on what chain, but Juno, it's too late to unbond before the end of the year. So it's already past that time, at least here in the US. So at least to be able to have the sale before the end of the tax year.
Yeah, end of tax year is depends on your company reporting schedule in the UK. So we are too basic bitch to have had a
fancier.
We did the the joke about like what happens if you just click through all the screens in a RPG and you get like the default character. That's basically our company. It's just like 5th of April, right, a bit of a weird day or whatever, click. Works for everybody else, so we'll do that. And then just like 5th of April is such a weird, no, wait, is it 5th of April? Maybe it's 30th of April, whatever the default is. Literally, this is what I mean, whatever the fucking default is, lads. But yeah, interesting times really with a lot of that.
How about what are we talking about?
Welcome back. We're talking about like validators. Well, we're talking about like whales or like big movements of people unbonding across a bunch of different chains right now. But I think what we wanted to talk about, we were talking about before we hopped on, was like how do validators justify kind of keeping staying on specific chains, even though they might be either running at a loss or maybe really low margin? And why do they do that? Like, or do they? Because I think we're starting to see some validators on bond on specific chains, which it's really easy to kind of stack up chains that are valuable versus not, and kind of start from the bottom if you want to. And so some of these chains, I think, we're not going to die, because I think there's definitely a lot of interest from others to keep, people will come and fill that void.
Definitely.
Right?
So from what I know, like, if you even just look at the testnet scene, right, there are scores of validators who validate on testnets that would probably be more than willing to run on a mainnet just for the lols, just to like get experience in it if it's a shit chain and there's window to get in there and they don't already have like a delegating community. So that's a leg in for them, and that's exactly the way it should work. The other guys who are more focused on the bigger chains and run bigger hardware and spend more time should focus on the higher value chains that they're already in, and then open the door for other people who want to have a go. And that's exactly, if it's a low economic value chain, what's the damage that's going to be done? Even the higher economic value chains, well, I shouldn't say economic value, I should say the higher value chains.
Right.
Like even, guys outside of the top 20 on most of them, I would imagine would be running at a loss. Our take at the moment is dismal, and the chains we all run are like mostly top 20 in the chains we run, and the monthly take is like not that great. So
yeah, or they're cramming things down, right? Like you might have. I was running a 3-node Horcrux, and then people decide, well, screw that, I'm just going to go to a single signer, and I'm going to put 6 chains on one box, and then you're going to find ways people are going to find ways to cut costs, right? Like they're going to try to take money out of the business and just shove it down, which isn't, depending on the operator, is not an awful thing, but not really great for kind of long-term success or, stability, etc.
It's interesting you mentioned Horcrux there, though, because we're running TM KMS, and it requires a relatively big box in our experience just to have it like totally stable. And one of the pushes to finally start switching over to DGen Horcrux, which has been on the plate for quite a long time. Well, one reason is because we run the Juno 4 set, and for some unfathomable reason, it keeps crash looping the box it's on. And I keep upgrading software, changing things, trying to work out what the root cause is, and then it crash loops itself again. And I'm yet to get to the bottom of it. So I think it might be time for that server to go to live on a farm.
Take it upstate.
Take it upstate. Yeah, exactly. But I think also just like if you're not on fully on kind of bare metal, the DGen Horcrux approach is the bear market's friend. If you look at good offerings from OVH, places like that, we're for other networks doing some stuff on OVH at the moment, and they've been really good. Not sponsored to say that, just to clarify, I'm not going to not just shilling OVH here specifically above other people, but they are obviously crypto friendly, which helps.
The way that our conversation takes to the real world, the-frey, you've just like basically centralized the cosmos. After next week, there's going to be 80% on OVH now.
Well, because of our outsized impact.
Because you just told everybody to, and as we've learned, whatever we say here becomes reality. So
yeah, but
be careful what you say.
As anybody listens to the podcast,
we're just oracles.
other than Jake One, who is a known frequenter.
Well, I'm questioning. You raise a good point. I'm questioning whether he has really watched any of the episodes or whether he's just watched potentially the latest one. But yeah, I'm tipping that he hasn't watched them all.
Yeah, shall we say?
They actually, I think you were right. I think they were doing the rounds because after we said that potentially not a good fit for this show, they said, well, we'd like to this is Ignite, not Jay. They said, well, we'd like to like potentially have some other of our devs on the show. And there's like, here's our deck. And I'm like,
I think they might be doing PR like damage. What's it called? Damage mitigation from having like fired a load of devs.
Yeah, they fired a lot of devs.
I didn't realize they did. When was that announced?
Not long ago.
Yeah, they just kind of.
They didn't announce it, I don't think.
They just fired a lot
of devs.
Let people go, didn't they? ICF or sorry, Ignite, whatever.
So I suspect that the-Frey and I know, because we know people who were employees of Ignite and are now not, and said that they rang up one morning and fired a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, in general, it just kind of seems like if you're in a leadership position in the eco and you have a bunch of money and are thus quite resilient to market conditions, then like using it as an excuse to just like shed headcount without a clear, it just kind of seems like disingenuous and shitty, I think.
I mean, that's kind of happening in tech in general right now. There's quite a few companies that I'm following that just did layoffs, and they're like, well, we're not quite making as much profit, and they're in the same profit.
Yeah.
But they let off, 20% of their staff just because they're like, well,
yeah,
if there's layoffs happening right now, we might as well start cutting headcount.
Yeah.
Which
it's not
fine
very good
because
forward thinking, is it? Like
it might be because during COVID, they did a lot of hiring. And most of us in software kind of saw it as like, there's no way that's sustainable. And now it's kind of just the grandfather clock is swinging the opposite direction now.
Yeah.
And they're also getting really great severance packages.
Does that mean they're cutting their development though? Like if you've got a lower headcount, that you're not improving your product, right? So what are they saying in times of like lower?
I don't know.
Well, if you want to be ahead of the development curve.
Mythical Man Month, Null. I've definitely worked with teams before where there were a load of people and they were less productive than 3 people in a room. Like,
sure.
If you have like a really effective small team, you can make a product with 3 to 5 people that will look like it was made by loads more, but only if those people have. Yeah, right, exactly. I mean, the 37 Signals, stuff like that. They had 37 employees when they were a $1 billion company. There's a whole bunch of examples of things that were built by a very small group of people, but they were, people who worked to a very specific way of working that, prioritize productivity. Which
so I would address VCs, Noel, to address kind of your comment on the layoffs, is they often kind of like force growth. And that's kind of the purpose of VCs, right? It's to get that funding so that you can get more engineers, so you can create more products, but often that dilutes kind of the message of the company. A great example of that would be maybe Heroku with Salesforce. Salesforce bought Heroku thinking it would, expand them, whatever. And then they just kind of suffocated Heroku. And that was kind of a VC decision. And now that VC is kind of drying up, venture capital funds is kind of drying up, that's when you start laying off those extra people, because you didn't necessarily need them. You just kind of wanted them on standby, for kind of a weird way to put it.
Yeah. Plus,
like, available brain power to like absorb ideas and turn them into product, right? Just in case someone has a good brain fart.
The other thing is like some companies, it's a good opportunity just to get rid of folks and not take bad press for it. So like
people you don't like.
Well, I mean,
fuck you.
Frankly, it's a good time to upgrade. So a lot of companies will say, all right, we're going to cut 10% because there's always 10%. Everybody knows that. Every company I've ever been in, there's always 10%, right? So they're going to cut that 10%, and then they'll take that from a bad press that can kind of believe it in the market, and they can rehire that 10 or 15%, from an open market that might have much more available resources that are, that are really far more exciting or far more kind of valuable in that time. I just heard, I think somebody changed their name, so I lost my thought on what the hell is actually going on in here. Oh my
Well, it's
goodness.
also a good time for restructuring in general. At the beginning of COVID,
Yeah,
I worked at Acorns, and they had 4 satellite offices, I want to say. They had their main headquarters down in Southern California. Then they had a Portland office. They had a New York office, Detroit, and one other. And one day during the all hands, the CEO comes on and he goes, okay, offices, this, and this, don't come in on Monday. And then he signed off, and that was it. So we're all just like, what? But because it was amidst so many other layoffs, no, I don't remember seeing a single article about, 100 employees for Acorns being laid off, even though it was something like 20% of the staff.
So, Usurper, I feel like what I'm taking from your commentary is that basically there's now a glut of people that other people don't like in the labor market, right?
Yes.
Non-personable people. That might just be describing devs in general.
No, I don't mean that. So some companies had to lay off good people because they couldn't afford them, and other companies will lay off people because they can. And they, usually a firm can't decide to take, I'm going to cut 10% of developers just off if a large firm, just say I'm going to cut 10% of a specific area and not end up in the news.
What I'm saying, what I mean is though, is that like when you cut 10% of your workforce, it's not a non-discriminatory cut. You don't just take out the 100 and then go in 10% and go slice, you're all gone without discrimination. It's like we either don't like you or think you're shit. And so the people who are landing in
sometimes they literally just clear a whole team out. Like I've had that before. There's literally like, it's not discriminatory. It's just like, this team is effectively shut down. You're all done. We'll move some of you, like say we need 2 ops engineers over in this part of the business. We'll keep the 2 ops guys, everybody else.
I mean, that's what it was with Acorns. Yeah, they just laid off the entire offices completely, regardless of what they were working on.
Yeah, it's very common. Like less, obviously not quite the same as permanent staff, but like it's also very common if you're doing contracting type stuff where you're doing like stuff. What's it called? Supplement.
Well, at least like subcontracting or whatever.
Yeah, whatever it's called, where they need like 5 more devs, so they just bring in
contractors.
5 independent contractors. Yeah, exactly. Very common if you have like a team that's primarily contractors, which is pretty common actually in the UK because there's so few senior developers. Like there's so many open jobs, even at the worst of market conditions, that you sometimes, if you do the corporate contracting lark, you end up on a team where the product manager and like the user researcher or whoever, the designer, let's say, are all permanent staff, and then all the developers and the platform people are all contractors because they're all kind of senior and they'll just say, okay, we will contract. But then when times change, they literally go, right, you 3 are reassigned, you're all fired. Like here's your 1 day notice. Right. But then, that's the game, isn't it? That's why you get paid more as a contractor. But it is that straightforward. They just go, this team's no longer needed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I wish I had an office full of people that I could fire.
Don't work for now.
If I had another office full of people that I didn't have to fire, I'd love to be able to afford an office full of people.
I'm pretty sure I didn't like hallucinate that a few days ago Noel said to me like, oh, I have a reputation for being a right cunt at work.
Is that true?
And he's literally frozen. That was dead funny. If he froze, so he can no right of response.
So the problem is, I just moved my Elon dish yesterday, and I put it in the top of a pole, like in the top of a tube, which is where you sit it. But because I don't have like the OEM top of pole tube sitter, I sit it in there and just tape it around it so it doesn't move. And the fucking birds are like going and landing on it and, doing the shit on it and then flapping around a bit. And then it like moves a little bit and then I lose my satellite connection occasionally.
That is the most fucking Kingnodes response I've ever heard in my life.
Birds fucking up your shit. You need a BB gun.
Fucking.
We were just talking about murdering birds earlier.
We were. That's right.
No. BBs don't kill them. They just convince them that the nesting site is unsafe, and they move on.
So
if they're smarter than
you,
pigeons, they'll be smart enough to not land there again.
I'm not sure that I buy that.
You would
when you
love
hit
the
'em.
jank situation here.
Source have done it.
So I'm no longer in the caravan. I'm in like a cabin, I guess you would say. It's like a house that's not as good as like a house should be. So I guess a cabin. And
Shed.
then so I surveyed the outside of the house and there was nowhere to mount the Elon dish. And so I've parked the caravan very close to the cabin so that I could like run the cable out to the pole that I've got attached to the caravan. So I'm reliant on my caravan still.
It's still just like, it's such a ridiculous situation. I have better accommodation, but I'm still completely and utterly reliant on my inferior accommodation.
It looks nicer.
Yep.
Australia.
Yeah, but at least it's got a nice area I can set up here for the stream when you get the nice bird noise in the background. I could close the doors, which would probably be better for the audio, but there's a nice breeze.
So the other week, I think we covered that Null was recommending a Australian an Aussie slasher flick or exploitation film called Fair Game. I was at the pub the other day and a Polish lad that I know recommended me I think it might be an American film, and although it's set in Australia, it wouldn't surprise me hugely if it was actually just fucking randomly filmed in America. But it was called Road Game.
Not the same.
And yeah, and it's also about serial killers in Australia. What is with it? Everything is about serial killers in rural Australia.
So I feel like, a lot of it was it a 70s movie? Was it yellow?
70s or 80s? No. You see, this is what made me think it was actually filmed in the US. I watched the trailer, wasn't yellow tinted, and I was like, that's Arizona, my man. That's Arizona.
That's Hollywood,
that's
baby.
somewhere in America.
That's like when they're
no cactuses though, so actually maybe not American desert.
So
although
what is it?
There are plenty of American deserts that have cactuses, I suppose.
Sure.
So wasn't the latest Mad Max filmed in like UAE or something like that?
Wherever they got a tax break, I imagine.
I thought it was in Australia, was it not?
I don't. Well, maybe some of it. I thought it was over UAE, in the dunes and stuff like that. I could be wrong. I think over there is like that more of apocalyptic look.
That's Fury Road, right? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, but Australia, like, it's not meant to like look like Australia, right? It's meant to look like America in Mad Max. It's not like the apocalyptic aftermath of Australia. It's just like an apocalyptic aftermath.
They took the yellow tint out of it.
I was under the impression it was filmed near Cooper Pedy. Is that right?
Maybe some of the earlier movies. Usurper, I think the yellow hue of all the movies here comes from like the intense sun rays. Just like you can see them here. See, there's fucking God rays coming in through the window. I'm getting you want to see the back of my head, man? It's blistering. So
Namibia.
Maybe all of that yellow hue actually comes from like the sun just belting down on the boxes and melting the friggin' film.
Yeah, I think so. I see Namibia in that list. I see a lot of Australia in that list too, and in Cape Town. So yeah, all over the place, but mostly Australia. It looks like.
So the J, was that a recommendation for the Australian movie that you were talking about? Did you recommend we watch that?
I don't know. I watched the trailer and I was like, this could be a laugh. It's quite short, but whether or not I will have time to... I mean, who the fuck am I kidding? I'm not going to have time to watch it. Yeah. I still have a half-assembled house. I don't even have a TV. I can't even fucking watch Netflix at the moment. There's no way... I guess I could just watch it on my laptop, which I've got propped up on a pile of books right now. There's tough times here. I just keep getting the whiff of bleach. I'm like, where the fuck is that bleach coming from? And I realize it's because although I did wash my hands after I got bleach on them, it's just my hands smell kind of bleachy. Life is bleachy. Is that corn? Whatever.
So Sporty says, gosh, I thought Null had a fake background on.
It does look like it, actually.
Partial Match says, didn't Bart kill a bird with Nelson's BB gun? Well remembered. Yeah, they killed a chick, I think. Because BB guns only go like I think 300 feet per second. Although in the US they're not legally capped.
Yeah, we have some crazy ass ones here.
You probably could kill a bird in the US. In I think maybe not in Europe, but certainly in the UK, BB guns have a maximum velocity of 300 feet per second.
I can tell you, I've killed some birds with BB guns.
Yeah, me too. Yep.
But do you mean BB gun or air rifle?
Yes, like single pump in the half,
yes, pump,
and then
pump action.
Yeah. So it's like a tiny little pellet, and it's air powered.
Yes.
It's like a break action.
Doesn't have to be a BB.
That's an air rifle.
It could be like an actual pellet,
rifle.
like a little point on it, right? It has a little tail on it.
Yeah. So in the UK, you call that an air rifle, not a BB gun.
So what's a BBT then? Is that the airsoft, the really soft ones?
Yeah, BBs are just the little plastic pellet.
So plastic or metal?
That's airsoft here. If it's metal, it's BB here. If it's plastic, it's airsoft.
BB is metal ball bearing, right?
Yeah. So we call the round ones BBs, and then air rifles are they're air rifles because it's like competitive target shooting, isn't it?
Yeah. So is there a limit on air rifles in the UK or no?
No, you can just buy them.
Okay.
Periodically, there's like should we clamp down on them because somebody
gets hit.
Some stupid fucking kid shoots some old lady or something.
Yeah.
And then gets arrested and then put in a borstal or whatever. Yeah. And then there's like a little bit of moral outrage for a bit. And then people go, well, yeah, but it's still, you can only still really kill a bird with it. There are two, you can get like really high powered, like kind of like, I think they're, because whatever they are the 177.177 or 0.22, the little metal pellet ones.
177.
The really powerful ones, I think you do need to be over 21. I think you need to have a reason.
Really?
I think you need to say like, oh, I live in the countryside and I want to shoot pests, and they're not pests that I'm not legally allowed to shoot, and then they'll go, oh yeah, go buy one. Here's your little. But I think you basically just have to tell the police that you have it, just so that they're aware that you have it. Same as shotguns, like, you can, if you're like a farmer, you can buy a shotgun, but you have to tell the police that you have it and register it. And you have to ask them first, and they're like, if you have like a record of being a mental lad who shouldn't have a shotgun,
interesting, then
they'll be like, you can't have that shotgun. Sorry. It's a very big problem actually that a lot of people go senile in old age and have locked up guns, especially in rural places, and then because the licensing we have, because we have so few guns, is like quite lax. It is literally tell your local police, get the license certificate, put it in the kitchen dresser. Do you know what I mean? And then you've got like some 70-year-old guy with 3 12 gauges in his house who's now got Alzheimer's. And then like, I've got a friend who's basically a rural doctor, and he's like, they have a thing where there's one person who does have like dementia, and they, as doctors, they go, oh yeah, you have to make sure you like toot the horn at the end of the drive and like really announce you're coming, because we know that guy is beginning to get shaky, and we're not certain his son won't take away the shotguns. They're locked up, but like, better be safe than sorry. And you're like, all right, okay.
Yeah, because they'll literally come out with it, right?
Yeah, exactly, potentially. Yeah. But I mean, they're locked away, so it's a gun cabinet, right? You can't just, a 70-year-old is not going to be able to open a gun cabinet with their bare hands, and not the Incredible Hulk. But yes, better be safe than sorry, as we say in this country, I guess. So I wanted to also mention that there was we've already covered the leaving a chain thing earlier, but Schultzy was saying the other day that Hetzner are coming for more validators, right? Is it near that have gotten?
Yeah. A handful of near validators have received a message. Basically, well, what's interesting about it is, yes, they've received a message, but they're much more soft core about it with near. With near, they received a borderline polite email saying, hey, your account is kind of sort of being investigated. It's in our terms of service that we don't do crypto. We might, look into your stuff a little bit. It wasn't like Solana where they just kind of kicked off 10 or 20% of the network and called it good. And as far as I know, that was probably a week ago, and no one's actually been kicked off yet. They've just received the email saying there's preliminary investigation. So I think that's really interesting, and I'm hoping it's a good sign of things to come. We run Horcrux, and we still use Hetzner. But if Hetzner kicked us off, Horcrux would just switch to one of our other platforms, so I wouldn't really care. But not having to worry about it would be really great.
But you also have the benefit that if you're running Horcrux, you can run Horcrux on a cloud or a bare metal provider or whatever, and like no provider is going to be like, oh, we absolutely won't let you run a signer.
Yeah.
How dare you? How dare you run cryptographic signers on our material? It's like, yeah, I can run Apache Kafka. I'm allowed to run Horcrux.
There's a fair bit of IO on a signer.
There is for sure, especially on the
but they charge you for that. They love it. They're like,
so if you run them single signer, there's a lot less. So also, like, OVH has a we don't give a fuck about crypto policy. So you're pretty safe over there. Just push more people over to OVH now. I should get a bloody commission. What is that, like, affiliate link? We should get affiliate links.
We've established we're not good at marketing. Okay.
We're definitely not good at making money either.
Or making money. I mean, if we were good at making... Yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch of there's a whole bunch.
We do it for the memes. We do it for the memes.
I mean, for back to Hetzner, that's part of the reason why I think a lot of us are starting to drop networks is OVH for the same system as a Hetzner system. You're talking double the price, and OVH is pretty cheap, relatively speaking. Hetzner was just disgustingly cheap, and so suddenly these chains where you could, not worry about it too much because Hetzner was so cheap. It was maybe $10 a month to run I guess over multiple servers. Let's say $10 a month to run a chain. That's not a big deal. That's a marketing cost. Suddenly, with multiple servers and multiple nodes and running relayers, the cheapest chain suddenly, $100+ a month. And that's when the calculus really starts to change. So really, you can thank Hetzner for a lot of these chains, people leaving these chains.
Fun fact.
Yeah.
Kingnodes has never run a node on Hetzner ever.
It's because they wouldn't have you.
Yeah. You can't brag about that.
What kind of marketing is that?
Denied an application.
We've already established that, like, because your company name's Big Balls Blockchain, they were like, obviously you're running crypto. We're obviously going to ban you.
I like to announce that I have never played golf at the Masters. It's basically the same thing.
I wonder.
I might actually change the company name to Big Balls Blockchain. Usurper, you don't have to be a good golfer to play golf at the Masters. You could blag your way in like that guy from like America.
Can you?
Yeah, he's played at the Masters heaps, like many years, and he just blagged his way in. I'm pretty sure he was British.
Wait, how do we end up talking about golf?
That's a
Usurper segued.
I did. That was a bad one.
But what was it to do with?
Because you said it.
Noel's big balls.
I don't know. Just big balls.
His big blockchain balls.
Elephantitis blockchain. VTO LTD.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's successfully. Yeah, but so are they? But are the Hets coming for Cosmos? First, they came for the Solana validators, and I didn't give a shit because I don't validate Solana. Then they came for the near validators slightly more politely, and I was like, YOLO, it'll probably be fine because they're getting more polite as they go on. And then they came for me, and there was nobody else to give a shit because all the other ecosystems are larger by market cap than us.
Yeah, would I be talking out of turn if I said they probably don't give a shit about us?
I wouldn't think so.
They
I don't even know unless you're
like what they're probably like what the fuck is Cosmos?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
I haven't heard of this. Should I do some research?
I mean, I don't know though, because Near I think is quite a bit smaller than the Cosmos. So I think it's pretty surprising that they were hit before the Cosmos was, honestly.
Is it a RAM CPU usage thing though? Like is it wearing the shit out of NVMe drives like the Cosmos does?
That's a good question. I can't answer that.
Yeah, do you think they're being pressured by someone to like shut down these cryptographic networks because it makes no sense from a business perspective. The business perspective, it's better just to ignore it.